Did you know that Gintama can feel completely different depending on the translation? Where did you watch Gintama? Depending on the streaming platform, the translations can actually vary quite a bit. And unfortunately, it's pretty common for anime to lose some of its original nuance during translation and localization. Gintama, which is full of parody and comedy, is especially affected by this. When watching this show, you might notice a gap between the original Japanese dialogue and the English subtitles. So in this video, I just want to share a few interesting examples of those differences. First, the way Gintoki is addressed often feels strange in English translations. In the English subtitles, the word "donna" is often translated as "master." Originally, "donna" basically means husband. When butlers or maids refer to their employer, they might use the more polite form, "donna-sama." But "donna" can also be used as a casual way to address an adult man. And when people call Gintoki "donna," this is the meaning being used. So it's actually quite different from the meaning of "master." In English, it's closer to something like "Mr." or "Sir," but with a more casual tone. Next, let's look at the Santa episode from episode 37. Here's how the subtitles translate it. Let's compare the Japanese line with the English translation. The word kimaru does usually mean something like to look cool. However, in Japanese slang, it can also mean being high on drugs. So after the homeless man says, "I want to look cool in red this winter," Santa responds in a way that creates a double meaning. It can sound like he's saying, "You already look cool," but at the same time, it can also sound like he's saying, "You already look high." That's what makes the exchange funny. Also, Gintama is known for its clever word choices. In this scene, Santa speaks in a casual, slang-heavy way that feels very different from the polite and wholesome way Santa is usually portrayed. That contrast is part of the joke for Japanese audiences. Also, the line, "Look cool in red this winter," comes from the original Japanese line, "Kono fuyu wa aka de kimeru." This line is funny because it references a classic phrase often used in Japanese fashion magazines, like, "This season, go with something." Hearing that kind of standard, meme-ified phrases come from this character as part of the joke. Another detail is the way he ends his sentences with J. This is a stereotypical sentence ending often associated with elderly characters in Japanese media. However, he uses it in a very playful, almost comedic way. The humor comes from mixing that old person-style speech with a meme-ified fashion magazine-style phrase, which makes the line sound especially ridiculous to Japanese audiences.
ああ、よかった。なんとか改造手術だけは免れたか。
ベティです。よろしく、社長さん。
あんたも好きね、社長さん。
Did you notice that these two scenes use a very similar way of speaking? In Japan, many women from the Philippines used to work in hostess bars, and there are still places today where Filipino women work in similar roles. Because of this, Japanese audiences often associate Filipino hostesses with calling customers "shachozan." The word shacho literally means something like president or CEO. In Japan, the word shacho often carries the nuance of someone being important or impressive. Because of that, whether the customer is actually a company president or not doesn't really matter. They use shacho-san as a way to flatter or hype up the customer. The technically correct pronunciation would be shacho-san, but the pronunciation, shachozan, is meant to emphasize an accent associated with Filipino hostesses. In Gintama, scenes that are meant to remind viewers of nightlife districts or hostess bars sometimes feature characters who are modeled after Filipino hostesses, including their speech patterns. The subtitle here is actually very different from the original Japanese line. In Japanese, Gintoki says something closer to, "I'm going to be cut in half." "I'm going to become newly halved." The joke comes from a wordplay. New and half are both literal English words, but in Japan, new half is a term used to refer to male to female transgender entertainers. So Gintoki is joking that the pressure on his crotch is so bad that he's going to end up becoming a new half. Next, let's take a look at an episode where Gintoki and the others visit a traditional hot spring inn.
あよおい本当だなんでもないっすねとりあえず謝っとくわすまんなんでなんかなってんすかいや別に10万16歳みたいになってるだけ
This scene is a parody of Demon Kaka. He's famous for claiming that he's a demon borrowing a human body, and he even lists his birth date as November 10th, 98,038 BC. The background music is styled to sound like songs by Seiki Matu.
今のうちに上がりましょうすっかりのぼせちゃいましたよ我が輩我が輩我が輩って言った今
The subtitle translates Wagahai as myself, but this is actually the personal pronoun used by Demon Kaka. It gives off an arrogant and domineering impression, and it's not something that people use in everyday modern Japanese. Thank you for watching.